trapped in a dying ship. She never expected a human to save her with love. Whispers in the void. The damaged Lumidian research vessel drifted silently through the Cygnus expanse, its once elegant hull now scarred by plasma burns and debris impacts. Inside the ship's central chamber, Naira pressed her luminescent fingers against the control panel, her crystalline eyes reflecting the emergency lighting that pulsed in rhythm with the failing life support system. "Status report," she commanded, her voice melodic yet strained. "Life support at 27% capacity," the ship's AI responded. "Estimated failure in 38 hours. Communication arrays non-functional. Navigation systems compromised." Naira's translucent skin rippled with frustration, the bioluminescent patterns beneath shifting to a deep indigo, the Lumidian expression of concern. The civil war that had erupted between her people's factions had caught her research vessel in its crossfire. The isolationists, to which she belonged, had maintained for generations that contact with emotional species like humans would corrupt their logical, ordered society. The integrationists disagreed, believing exchange with other species would strengthen them. Now, as the sole survivor of her research team, Naira found herself adrift in a sector dangerously close to human territory. Her species had likely already classified her as unsalvageable, too risky to extract from this position. Logic dictated they would not risk revealing themselves to humans for one researcher. She was, by all calculations, already considered lost. Desmond Hayashi guided his salvage ship, the Tenacity, through the debris field with practiced precision. His dark eyes, lined from years squinting at scanner readouts, narrowed as he studied the unusual energy signature emanating from what appeared to be a derelict vessel. "That's no human design," he muttered, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. At 43, Des had spent more than half his life in space, first in the Earth Coalition forces, then as an independent salvager after growing disillusioned with military politics. He adjusted his ship's approach, keeping a cautious distance. Juno analyzed that hull composition. His ship's AI responded promptly. "Unknown alloy, no match in database. Structure suggests highly advanced engineering beyond current human capabilities." Des let out a low whistle. "First contact or valuable salvage, either way," he smiled slightly. "Looks like today just got interesting." The Tenacity's airlock sealed against the alien vessel with a satisfying hiss. Des double-checked his oxygen supply and the compact multi-tool at his belt before stepping through. What he found inside defied expectation. The corridors seemed almost organic, with flowing lines and materials that responded to his touch with subtle luminescence. The air was breathable but had an unfamiliar sweetness to it. Most surprising was the lack of angular construction. Everything curved and flowed as if grown rather than built. "Hello," he called out, his voice echoing strangely in the alien acoustics. "Anyone alive in here?" Des followed the emergency lighting to what appeared to be a central control chamber. The door slid open with an unexpected hiss, and he found himself face to face with someone he'd never seen before. A being stood before him, nearly human in form but distinctly alien. Her skin was translucent with patterns of light moving beneath it like liquid starlight. Her eyes, large and faceted like gemstones, widened at the sight of him. For a moment, neither moved. Then the alien stepped back, raising what looked like a defensive posture. A stream of musical sounds emerged from her, clearly language, but nothing Des could understand. "Whoa, easy there," Des said, raising his empty hands. "I'm not here to hurt you. My name is Desmond Des." The alien's skin rippled with colors, blues and purples that seemed to pulse with emotion. She spoke again, her tone sharp and clipped. Des tapped his chest. "Desmond," he pointed to her questioningly. The alien hesitated, then tapped her own chest. "Naira," her voice had an almost crystalline quality. "Naira," Des repeated, offering a cautious smile. "Nice to meet you." Naira had expected many outcomes when her ship was damaged, but encountering a human had not been among them. Everything she'd been taught classified humans as dangerous, unpredictable, and ruled by emotions rather than logic. Yet this human, Desmond, had not immediately attempted to capture or harm her. Still, she maintained her distance, watching him carefully as he examined the ship's control panels with curious eyes. "Your ship," Des said slowly, pointing around them. "It's damaged." He made a braking motion with his hands. Naira understood the primitive gesture, Yes, damaged. She formed the unfamiliar human word carefully. Des pointed to a display showing the failing life support. Bad, you. He pointed to her, then made a breathing motion. Need air, help. He tapped his chest, then gestured to the ship's systems. Naira's education on human behavior had never prepared her for this. A human offering assistance instead of seeking advantage. The isolationist faction would consider any acceptance of help as contamination by human emotionality. Yet logic dictated that survival took precedence. After a moment's calculation, she nodded once. Help. Over the next several hours, Des worked to stabilize the alien ship systems. Naira observed him with increasing fascination. Where Lumidian engineers would approach problems with methodical precision, the human worked with intuitive leaps and creative adaptations. He spoke constantly as he worked, despite her limited understanding, his expressive face shifting between concentration, frustration, and occasional triumph. The ship's translation matrix was slowly processing his language patterns, allowing Naira to grasp more of his meaning with each passing hour. Your power distribution is incredible, Des said as he rerouted energy to the life support systems. We've got nothing like this back home. These circuits almost seem alive. Bioneural pathways, Naira replied, pleased when comprehension showed on his face. The translation was beginning to function in both directions. Ship is partially organic. Des whistled appreciatively. No wonder I couldn't make sense of half these systems. It's not just technology, it's biology too. A sudden violent shudder ran through the ship, throwing them both against the wall. Warning signals flashed across the displays. Hull breach in Section 4. Naira translated the ship's alert, her skin flashing alarming patterns of red and yellow. Pressure dropping. Des reacted immediately. Show me where. Without hesitation, Naira led him through the corridors to the damaged section. The breach was widening, precious atmosphere venting into space. The repair protocols are offline, Naira explained, her voice rising with uncharacteristic urgency. Without them. We'll do it manually, Des interrupted, already pulling equipment from his pack. I need something that can bond with your hull material. Naira hesitated only briefly before retrieving a container of molecular sealant from a nearby compartment. This will adapt to the hull composition. Together, they worked to seal the breach, Des following Naira's instructions on applying the alien material while contributing his own expertise on structural reinforcement. It was a blend of their knowledge. Neither could have completed the repair alone. When the breach was finally sealed, they stood side by side, breathing heavily from the exertion. Des turned to Naira with a smile that transformed his features. We make a good team, he said. Naira felt an unfamiliar sensation, a warmth that spread through her neural pathways. Efficient cooperation, she acknowledged, though the words felt insufficient. As they returned to the central chamber, Naira found herself studying the human with new perspective. Desmond moved with a confident grace that belied his species' reputation for clumsiness. His problem-solving abilities were impressive, and his willingness to assist without immediate benefit contradicted everything she'd been taught about human selfishness. Why do you help? She asked directly as Des continued working on the ship's systems. Des paused, looking up at her with those expressive eyes. Because you need it, he said simply. Isn't that reason enough? My people believe humans act only from emotion and self-interest, Naira stated, watching his reaction carefully. Des chuckled. Well, we're not perfect, but leaving someone to die when I could help, that's not who I want to be. He reconnected a power coupling before continuing. What about your people? Would they have helped me if our situations were reversed? The question unsettled Naira. The honest answer was no. Isolationist protocol would classify a stranded human as an unfortunate but necessary sacrifice to maintain separation. Yet now, experiencing this human's selfless assistance firsthand, that policy seemed suddenly illogical. I would help you, she said finally, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Des smiled again, and Naira observed with scientific interest how that simple expression created minute changes throughout his physiology. Relaxed muscles, altered breathing, subtle shifts in posture. More intriguing was her own response, an involuntary brightening of her bioluminescent patterns. Perhaps, Naira considered as they continued working side by side, there was something to learn from humans after all. something her people, in their pursuit of pure logic, had overlooked. Something worth exploring further. Between two worlds, the following days established a rhythm between them. Des had moved essential supplies from the Tenacity to the Lumidian vessel, allowing him to remain aboard and continue repairs. Naira, for her part, had programmed the ship's translation matrix to interface with Des's communication device, significantly improving their ability to converse. "So these patterns," Des said, gesturing to the shifting lights beneath Naira's skin as they shared a meal in what he'd come to think of as the ship's galley. "They're not just beautiful, they're language." Naira's luminescence rippled with a soft golden hue, a reaction Des had begun to associate with what might be the Lumidian equivalent of pleasure or amusement. "Partial language," she explained. "Emotional state indicators primarily. Lumidians communicate through sound and light simultaneously." She tilted her head, studying him. "Humans communicate with much more than words as well. Your face makes—" She gestured vaguely toward him. "Many movements." Des laughed. "Expressions? Yeah, we're pretty transparent that way." "Transparent," Naira repeated, her bioluminescence shifting to a curious blue. "Yes, though initially confusing, I find your expressions increasingly informative." They had progressed beyond mere survival. The life support systems were now stable, and many of the ship's secondary functions had been restored. What remained damaged beyond repair were the propulsion systems and long-range communications. "Tell me about your people's conflict," Des said, finishing his meal. "You mentioned factions, isolationists, and integrationists." Naira's patterns dimmed slightly. "For generations, Lumidians have evolved toward logical perfection. Emotions were seen as evolutionary remnants to be controlled, not indulged." Her crystalline eyes focused somewhere distant. "Isolationists believe contact with emotional species, particularly humans, would contaminate our society with irrationality. Integrationists argue that diversity of perspective strengthens rather than weakens." "And you," Des asked gently, "which side do you align with?" Naira was silent for a moment. "I was raised isolationist. My research focused on maintaining our separation protocols." She looked directly at him. "But my observations now contradict many established assumptions about humans." Des raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Like the belief that human emotionality precludes logical thought. You demonstrate both simultaneously." Her patterns shifted to a contemplative violet. "You act from what you call compassion, yet your solutions are often ingeniously practical." Des smiled. "Maybe the best thinking comes from balancing both." The ship's alert system suddenly chimed, drawing their attention to the central console. Naira moved quickly to examine it, her patterns shifting to an anxious yellow-green. "A signal has been detected," she announced, her voice tense. "Lumidian frequency, a patrol vessel." Des stood, something tightening in his chest. "Your people coming to rescue you." "Yes," Naira's response was barely audible. "An isolationist enforcement vessel, Commander Thallo's signature." "That's good, right?" Des asked, though something in her demeanor suggested otherwise. Naira turned to him, her patterns turbulent with conflicting colors. "Commander Thallo was my mentor. He will extract me according to protocol." She hesitated. "Protocol dictates no witnesses to Lumidian presence. They will consider you a complication." The implication was clear. Des stepped back, nodding slowly. "I should return to my ship." "Wait." Naira's hand reached out, stopping just short of touching him, a significant gesture for a species that rarely initiated physical contact. "There is time. The vessel will not arrive for 17 hours." Des felt the weight of everything unsaid between them. 17 hours, huh? What do you suggest we do with that time?" "I wish to understand more," Naira said, her voice taking on a new intensity. "About humans, about you." The hours that followed were filled with exchange. Naira showed Des the Lumidian stellar maps, explaining their hidden outposts throughout the galaxy. Des shared stories of Earth, its diverse cultures and environments. They discussed philosophy, science, art, finding surprising commonalities and fascinating differences. As the time of arrival grew closer, their conversation turned more personal. "I've been alone most of my adult life," Des admitted as they sat side by side, watching the stars through a repaired observation viewport. "After leaving military service, I found it easier to keep to myself, less complicated." "Isolation as protection," Naira observed. My people chose similar paths, yet for different reasons. And now, Des asked, what will you do when Commander Thalo arrives? Naira's patterns shifted slowly through thoughtful blues and purples. Protocol is clear. I will be extracted, debriefed, and reintegrated into isolationist society. She turned to him. Knowledge of our encounter will be restricted to the highest security clearance. So we never happened, Des said quietly. That is protocol, Naira confirmed, though her tone held an unfamiliar hesitation. Des nodded, accepting but not hiding his disappointment. I understand. Do you? Naira asked suddenly, her patterns intensifying. Because I am finding it increasingly difficult to understand myself. She stood, moving restlessly around the chamber. Before you arrived, my path was clear. Logic dictated every choice. Now I find myself considering alternatives. What kind of alternatives? Des asked, standing as well, hope kindling despite his effort to suppress it. Irrational ones, Naira admitted. I find myself calculating the consequences of not returning with Commander Thalo. Des stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. Naira, whatever you decide, it has to be your choice. I won't influence you either way. But you already have, she said, her voice almost accusatory. Your presence, your actions, they have already influenced me beyond acceptable parameters. Her patterns were chaotic now, swirling with colors Des hadn't seen before. I experience reactions when you are near, physiological responses that have no logical purpose. Des felt his heart rate increase. We have a name for that on Earth. What name? She demanded. Connection, he said simply, maybe even attraction. Naira's patterns stilled suddenly, settling into a deep, resonant blue. This is why the isolationists fear contact with humans. These feelings, they overrule logic. They don't have to overrule it, Des said gently. They can work alongside it. The ship's alert system interrupted again. The Lumidian vessel was now just hours away. Des sighed, running a hand through his hair. I should prepare the tenacity, he said. Get ready to leave before they arrive. If you leave now, we will never see each other again, Naira stated, the factual tone of her voice belied by the intensity of her patterns. Des looked at her for a long moment. Is that what you want? Want is an emotional construct, she replied automatically, then shook her head. No, it is not what I want. Commander Thalo's voice came through the communication system with crystal clarity, formal, precise, and cold. Researcher Naira, prepare for immediate extraction. Our scans detect a human vessel nearby. Has your position been compromised? Naira stood before the communication panel, her posture rigidly formal. Des remained out of visual range as they had agreed. Commander Thalo, she acknowledged. The human vessel belongs to a salvager who discovered my damaged ship. He has not reported his finding. Unfortunate, Thalo responded. Protocol dictates complete sterilization of all evidence of Lumidian contact. Des felt a chill at the clinical tone. Sterilization undoubtedly included his ship and himself. The human preserved my life, Naira stated. Without his intervention, I would not have survived to be extracted. A long pause followed. That complicates matters. Nevertheless, protocol must be followed. Prepare for boarding. We will deal with the human appropriately. Naira's patterns shifted to a determined indigo. Commander, I request clarification on one matter before boarding. Proceed. The integrationist position, that contact with other species may benefit Lumidian evolution. Has it been fully evaluated with empirical evidence? Another pause, longer this time. Researcher Naira, your isolation has clearly affected your judgment. We will discuss this after extraction and proper reintegration treatment. The communication ended. Naira turned to Des, her patterns now calm and resolved. They will board in 30 minutes, she said. They intend to capture or eliminate you. Des nodded grimly. I figured I should go try to outrun them. No, Naira moved toward him with determined strides. I have an alternative proposal. Commander Thalo's tall, imposing figure led the extraction team into the damaged research vessel. His skin patterns conveyed strict authority as he surveyed the repaired systems with mild surprise. Naira, he greeted formally when she appeared in the corridor. You have maintained yourself well despite the circumstances. Commander, she acknowledged with a respectful gesture, I must inform you of a decision I have made. Thalo's patterns shifted to cautious alertness. Your duty is to return and report your findings. There is no decision to be made. With respect, Commander, there is. Naira's voice was steady, her patterns showing a confidence Thalo had never witnessed in his former student. I have gathered sufficient empirical evidence to question the foundational assumptions of isolationist doctrine. Thalo's patterns darkened with warning. This is precisely why contact protocols exist. You have been contaminated by human emotionality. Not contaminated, Naira corrected. Illuminated, the human showed me that emotion and logic can coexist, even strengthen each other. Where is this human? Thalo demanded, gesturing for his security team to search the vessel. Gone, Naira stated, but I intend to go with him. Thalo's patterns flashed with shock. Impossible, you would abandon your people, your duty, for what? For discovery, Naira replied. I propose to serve as the first official Lumidian ambassador to humanity. My research will continue, but with a new hypothesis, that our species can benefit from controlled interaction. The Council will never approve this, Thalo warned. The integrationist faction will support it, Naira countered, and my findings may persuade others. A new voice joined the conversation as Des stepped into view from an adjacent corridor. If I might add something, Commander. Thalo's security team immediately raised their weapons, but he signaled them to hold. The human, Thalo observed coldly, you were supposed to be gone. Des smiled disarmingly. Change of plans, look, I understand your concerns. Different species, different values, it's complicated. But Naira and I proved something these past days. We proved cooperation is possible and beneficial. You presume to lecture me on Lumidian interests. Thalo's patterns conveyed icy disdain. No, Des replied calmly. I'm just suggesting that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from taking risks. Isn't that the essence of scientific progress? Naira stepped forward, her patterns aligning harmoniously with Des's presence beside her. Commander, I am not abandoning my duty to our people. I am expanding it. The civil conflict has reached a stalemate. Perhaps this alternative approach offers a path forward. Thalo studied them both, his analytical mind calculating possibilities and outcomes. Finally, his patterns settled into reluctant consideration. I cannot approve this independently, he stated, but I can delay reporting your status for 72 hours. That will give you time to present your case directly to both council factions. Naira's patterns brightened with surprise. You would permit this? I am permitting nothing, Thalo clarified. I am merely acknowledging that destroying evidence before proper analysis is itself illogical. He turned to leave, then paused. 72 hours, Naira, make your case compelling. After Thalo and his team had returned to their vessel and departed, Des turned to Naira with wide eyes. Did that just work? Did we just get a chance? Naira's patterns glowed with a warm, golden light that seemed to illuminate the entire chamber. We have 72 hours to change the course of two civilizations. Des grinned, no pressure then. There is significant pressure, Naira corrected, then paused as she recognized his humor. Ah, sarcasm. Des laughed, the tension of the confrontation breaking. We've got a lot of work to do if we're going to convince your council. Yes, Naira agreed, then hesitated before slowly extending her hand toward him, a distinctly human gesture she had observed but never attempted. But we will do it together. Des gently took her offered hand, marveling at the way her luminescence seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Together, he agreed. The stars continued their silent watch through the viewport as human and Lumidian stood hand in hand, two beings from worlds apart, creating something entirely new between them. In that moment, resonating across the stars, they both felt it. Not just the connection between two individuals, but the potential bridge between two civilizations that had never before imagined a shared future. It was just the beginning.